Hello everybody and welcome to day 5 of my birthday marathon. About a month ago I put out a poll asking what video I should do for my birthday, and I put up suggestions like my favourite songs from any genre, my favourite bands, or my favourite bands from any genre, and a couple of other options as well. And overwhelmingly it came back favourite songs of any genre. So that's what I've been doing. Now, I wrote out a massive list of my favourite songs, and it took me forever. It took me nearly, half a month just to try and narrow the list down as much as I could. And once I got down to about 14 songs, I really couldn't figure out how to narrow it down any further, because I have so many songs that I absolutely adore. So what I ended up doing is trying to do 2 videos a day for a week, which is a lot more than I intended on doing. I had no intention of doing this many, because I did the same thing last year where I did 2 videos a day for a week, and it took a lot of time, took a lot of effort. And so I was planning on going easier on myself this year, but I seem to have made things harder for myself. So trying to choose my favourite songs was really difficult, but what I ended up doing, because it was favourite songs of any genre, is I picked 7 metal songs and 7 songs from outside of the metal genre. So I've been doing 1 metal song and 1 different genre a day. And, you know, we've had the likes of Depeche Mode, Insomnium, Moonspell, My Dying Bride, Pearl Jam, Ralph McTell, Rosa Walton doing a song from Cyberpunk 2077, Swallow the Sun, etc. Now, perhaps the biggest step outside of what you'd expect from my taste in music, we're going to be looking at Richard Marx. Now, Richard Marx was hugely popular back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s. He is the son of famous jazz pianist Dick Marx. But Richard Marx, most people will know him from some songs like Right Here Waiting for You, Hold On to the Night, Endless Summer Nights, and Hazard, which is possibly one of his absolutely most famous ones, along with Right Here Waiting. And it's going to be Hazard that we look at today, because years ago when this song came out and I heard it, I mean, I like the guy's voice. He has got an incredibly good voice, and he's got a slight rock and roll edge going on with his music. He does put some grit into his voice at times. You know, I think he's a very good performer. He's got a very good voice, and as I mentioned in previous songs, I'm a bit of a soppy bastard as well. I do like my soppy romantic songs. And when the song Hazard came out, it was about this outcast who moved into this the town of Hazard in Nebraska, or a city. I'm not sure if it's a town or a city. Either way, he moved into Hazard in Nebraska, and he was immediately seen as he was a social pariah. You know, everybody saw him and thought he was like the odd one out, and I related very strongly to that, because, you know, when I was young, when I went to high school or secondary school, whatever you want to call it, I was like the only metalhead in the entire school, so I was an outcast. You know, I had literally no friends through the entirety of school. It was ridiculous. You know, so I sort of associated with the song quite well, because, you know, he was getting blamed for things, he was getting accused of things just because he was different, just because he stood out. So, you know, I sort of associated with it a bit. But Richard Marx, you know, he's an American pop rock singer. He's sold over 30 million albums worth worldwide, and he actually holds the distinction of having written songs that have hit #1 on various Billboard charts over the past 4 decades. So even when he's not actually performing, you know, he's writing songs. I mean, he's had collaborations with Luther Vandross, for example. You know, he wrote songs for Luther Vandross. So, you know, he's a very talented musician. He's a very talented songwriter, and he's written for some quite high profile acts. So, you know, it's a bit of an unusual song choice. I know it doesn't necessarily fit in what everybody thinks I would listen to, but I've said many times I have a huge taste in music, my taste in music expands from country music, opera, classical, all the way through pop, rock, grunge, all the way to like the heaviest of heavy metal. I like pretty much any kind of music as long as it sounds good to me, as long as it, shows talent. I'm very open-minded when it comes to music, and that comes at an advantage of pretty much my entire family being very musically based. There's more than just a couple of radio DJs in my family. So yeah, my taste in music is quite large, and I don't often get to explore this sort of style of music on this channel because more often than not people ask me to look at metal songs. So yeah, we're going to be looking at Hazard by Richard Marx, and it might be well known to some people. They might listen to it and go, God, I remember that's from like however long ago. So yeah, I really like the song. I like the story behind it. So I think we'll jump into the video. Before we do though, if you could take a moment to like and subscribe, it would really, really help me out. It'd really, really help out my channel, because as it stands, not even 2% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed. And, this is sort of causing my videos to disappear off into the aether and, not get suggested to people. So if you could like and subscribe, it would really, really help me out. It doesn't cost you anything, and it takes just a fraction of a second. But yes, let's jump into this track. So, Hazard by Richard Marx. Let's go. Iconic opening to this track.
Prejudice styles, that boy's not right. 3 years ago when I came to know Mary, first time that someone looked beyond the rumors and the lies and saw the man inside. We used to walk down by the sun go down. We used to walk along the river and dream our way out of this town. Understood what I felt for Mary. No one cared until the night she went out walking all alone and never came home. Man with a badge came knocking next morning. Here was I surrounded by 1,000 fingers suddenly pointed right at me. I swear I left her by the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. I need to make it to the river and leave this old Nebraska town.
Answer the question.
I didn't date her.
been there? She made you jealous, didn't she?
All right, Sheriff, what's the point?
This is the point. You recognize this? How did you tie this around Miss Mary's neck?
I swear I left her by the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. Oh, I need to make it to the river and leave this old Nebraska town.
You know, everyone thinks I should be afraid of you. But I'm not.
There we go. Hazard by Richard Marx. And I absolutely love that song. You know, like I said, I think he's got a great voice. You know, there was that bit quite close to the end where he came out with that sort of slightly more rock sound in his voice. You know, had a bit more grit to it. It's had a bit sort of more, I don't know, sort of 80s power ballady, I suppose. And the thing is, the actual video itself tells more than the actual story of the song. You know, the song itself talks about this kid. He came to Hazard, Nebraska, and he was immediately seen as an outcast, you know, social pariah sort of thing. And he gets accused of killing this girl, Mary, who was his friend. That's as far as the story tells, but in the video it tells you that, you know, he had, well, he even admits in it, you know, he did have some romantic feelings for Mary, but she didn't see him like that. It was a we're just friends sort of thing for her. But you know, he didn't seem overly fussed about that as a song goes. But in the video it sort of suggested that there was more of a romantic relationship on his side. You know, he wanted more from her. You know, they showed her in the car with another guy, you know, macking or whatever people call it. And, you know, he saw her. He was like, oh, shit, you know, I know this is never going to happen. And she sees him and then she feels bad. Then the police turn up and see that he's seen her doing that. And this gives them cause to suggest that he's the one that killed her because he saw her with another man. But it also makes a suggestion, excuse me, and I don't know how many people catch up on it. It makes a suggestion that it might have actually been the sheriff or one of the police that was actually responsible for Mary's death, because that, you know, it shows car creeping slowly along us beside her, you know, and she's sort of looking into the car window going, you know, would you leave me alone, quit following me? And it sort of suggests that it might have been a police car that was following her. So, you know, it suggests that maybe the police officer was like, well, if she's friends with him and she's getting off with that other guy, maybe she's easy and I want to go. You know, it sort of gives that sort of suggestion, and maybe they made an advance to her and she rebuffed him and he killed her off and then went, okay, how can we turn this to advantage? I know, let's accuse Richard, sort of thing. So, you know, there's a bit more to the story when you actually see the video, and, you know, they're determined to pin it on him. You know, and whilst he's in jail, everybody sort of sets fire to his trailer. There's a suggestion that when he was young, you know, his father went off, you know, had a mistress sort of thing, and when he was a child he went and set the mistress's house on fire because, you know, she was destroying the family. There's that suggestion as well. So, you know, that's even more reason to think that, you know, we can pin this on him because he's done something bad when he was a child. So, you know, there's quite a story going on in there, and I quite like it, you know, because it does tell a complete story. And I mean, the song goes, my mother came to Hazard when I was just 7. Even then the folks in town said with prejudiced eyes, that boy's not right. 3 years ago when I came to know Mary, first time someone looked beyond the rumours and the lies and saw the man inside. So, you know, his mother moved to Hazard, obviously, after separating from his cheating father, you know, and even even at that moment, when they moved into town, everybody was looking at him going, hold on, there's something not right about that kid, you know. And this kid was only 7, and they were already judging him, saying that there was something wrong with him. And then, he makes friends with this girl, Mary, and it's the first time someone looked beyond the rumours and the lies. So that instance that I spoke about before, where it would seem that he went to his father's mistress's house and set it on fire, that could just be rumour and hearsay. Because that happens so much. Some young kid moves into a new town and automatically all these stories start coming to the surface. Oh, I heard he did this. I heard he's done that, So chances are that was a false story, but the police are still trying to use it as an excuse as to why he killed Mary. And Mary was the first time to look beyond that sort of thing, to sort of ignore that and go, that's just hearsay, that's just rumours. There's no proof or evidence behind it, and she became friends with him. So, that automatically drew him directly to her, and that's probably what led him to have romantic feelings to her, because it's the first person to actually genuinely care for him outside of his mother. It goes, we used to walk down by the river. She loved to watch the sun go down. We used to walk along the river and dream our way out of this town. So obviously, Mary wasn't overly fond of Hazard either, and given the way that the police kept following her and, curb crawling alongside her, it does suggest that she was possibly like the town belle that everybody wanted a piece of. And she wasn't at all like that, she wasn't interested in that sort of thing, and maybe the police officer or the sheriff was harassing her and she just wanted to get out and get away from it. So, they both had this dream to leave Hazard because neither of them felt safe or welcome there. No one understood what I felt for Mary. No one cared until the night she went out walking all alone and never came home. A man with a badge came knocking next morning. Here was I, surrounded by 1,000 fingers suddenly pointed right at me. So no one cared that he cared for Mary. No one gave a shit until the point that she disappeared, and then they went, well, this guy was obsessed with her. This guy was friends with her. We saw them together a lot. So it must be him, So, she went out one night. She went out walking all alone and never came home. So someone at some point has grabbed her, tried to do whatever with her, and then killed her and thrown her in the river, as it seems to be in the video. And then of course everybody goes, well, it must be this guy because he's the social outcast and he's the one who spent the most time with her. And in some ways, not directly, I associated with this because when I was at school, I had long hair, I had a leather jacket, I listened to heavy metal. I stood out. I was the odd one out amidst a group of hundreds. You could see me coming a mile off, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to stand out, but I wasn't going to change who I was to fit in. I'm not a sheep, and anything bad happened, it was automatically, the blame was pointed at me because I listen to heavy metal, so I must be evil, I must be bad, I must be the one doing all these horrendous things. No matter what it was, blame got levelled at me because I was the one that stood out. That I can't even remember what it was. There was a time when I was at school, it was a long time ago, and I went in to a class and the teacher yelled at me and kicked me out of the class before the class even started, and I have no idea why. This is the sort of thing that used to happen because I was essentially an outcast, and this is the sort of thing that's happening here. He's saying, I was the outcast, I was the one that stood out, so immediately anything weird or strange or bad happened, he immediately got blamed. And he carries on, I swear I left her by the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. I need to make it to the river and leave this old Nebraska town. So he's saying, last time I saw her, we were sat by the river, and that's where she was last time I saw her. And of course, that's where they found her dead as well. So they've automatically assumed that he strangled her with her own scarf, thrown her in the river, and left. But he's saying, no, she was perfectly fine when I left. And she was walking around that later that night, And he's saying, I need to make it to the river, possibly, in a vain hope to try and find her. Maybe she was hiding. Maybe he thought, maybe she's hiding somewhere. Maybe they're just making shit up. And he's saying, I need to get out of this town. And he goes, I think about my life gone by, how it's done me wrong. There's no escape from me this time. All of my rescues are gone, long gone. So, he's thinking about everything that's happened in his past, everything that's led to this point. He's had a bad childhood, it would seem, because of his father leaving, coming from a broken home and that sort of thing. He's got blamed for things over the years because he's seen as this sort of social outcast. His whole life has been one big tragedy, it would seem. And, there's no escape for him. There's no way he can talk his way out of it, because everybody in this town, everybody in Hazard, is dead set against him. Everybody is absolutely certain that he's done this. Because they've set fire to his, in the video, they set fire to his trailer home before it's even concluded that it was definitely him. He's been immediately seen as guilty. Whether he did it or not, they're going to lay it on him anyway. So he's got no way out. All of my rescues are gone, long gone. There is literally no one there to help him out. Mary, his only friend, is gone. There's a chance that maybe his mother's passed by now, because he seems to be living alone. So he's got no one to turn to. He's got no one to help him. He's screwed, essentially. And then it goes back into that chorus. I swear I left her by the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. Oh, I need to make it to the river and leave this old Nebraska town. Boom. So, I like the fact that it tells a story. I mean, it is a completely fictional story, obviously, because Nebraska, if I remember correctly, is actually quite... not Nebraska. Hazard is quite a small town, and it doesn't have a river. So it's a completely fictional story. But I like the fact that it is telling a story. It's not one of these sort of, my wife done me wrong. I'm going to take my car and my dog and I'm going to leave with my trailer sort of thing. It's actually telling a story. He's written a story and written song for it, and the video itself is like a short story. It's like a small movie. So I like the fact that he's done that. Because I've said I like it when songs have stories, have meanings. I mean, obviously I like it when songs have deeper sort of real world sort of meanings, but in a way this kind of does, because it's talking about people and outcasts, and you shouldn't judge people just by how they look, because people are looking at him going, okay, there's this weird guy with long hair who's moved into our quiet little town. He's a bit weird. We've heard all these rumours and stories about who he really is that are completely unsubstantiated, and basically the song is like, you can't judge people like that. You don't know what this person's been through. They might have had a really difficult, shitty life, and here you are making up stories about them and making it even worse. So in a way it does kind of have a sort of real life, is attached to real life situations in some ways, but it also tells a story along with it, and I like the way it's been done. And when I heard this song, I can't remember how long ago it was, like I said, it's either late 80s, early 90s, I really like the song because I like his voice. I think he's a very talented singer. He's got a really, really good voice, and like I said, he's an excellent songwriter. He's been very, very successful for over 4 decades. He's had #1 songs in 4 decades. So he's obviously a very, very talented musician, and I really, really appreciate that. And that's the sort of thing that I look for when I listen to music. I listen to stuff that is well written. I listen to stuff that is well performed. I like stuff that proves that the artist itself has skill and talent. These people that craft pieces of music which is just either sampling someone else's piece of music and then adding a beat, boop, unce over the top. That to me doesn't show skill. That's just taking somebody else's piece of music and then bastardizing it. If there is a level of skill, if there is a level of talent behind it, I will give it a go. I will listen to it. This is why I listen to things like Snoop Dogg. This is why I listen to things like Eminem. This is why I listen to things like country music, classical opera. This is why I listen to all kinds of music, because there is skill behind every single one of them, and I appreciate the skill, the effort, and the time that is put into it. I know a lot of people don't like country music for some reason. Everybody sees it as the classic, my wife done me wrong, I'm taking my house, my car, my dog, and I'm leaving. They see it as that sort of thing. But again, a lot of country music has a lot more deeper meaning to it. You know, there are songs about domestic violence, for example. There were songs about, you know, Marines and stuff like that. You know, there was a song by Billy Ray Cyrus called Some Gave All, which is about American soldiers. You know, so, you know, there's a lot of meaning and a lot of depth and, you know, in a lot of music. But people automatically grow this hatred to a specific genre, and I've never understood it. Never understood it. I mean, there is certain music that I just can't listen to. Shit like Acid House. I cannot stand that sort of stuff. You know, so I will listen to anything, and this is a prime example of, you know, the extremes that my music goes to. You know, I'm listening to this now. Later on today, we're listening to Rotting Christ. You know, you couldn't get more different. But, you know, I've always loved this song. And, you know, I love the fact that there's a story behind it. I love the performance to it. So, you know, a little look inside my strange little mind. But I don't know what else I can say on that, so I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, because it really, really would mean the world to me. It would make a hell of a lot of difference to this channel, because as it stands, you know, I've been doing this for about 6 years, and not even 2% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed. And that's kind of disheartening, you know, because I've been doing this a long time, and I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I like to explore the songs. I like to explore the meanings behind the songs. I like to talk about the bands and the music and stuff like that, whereas most reaction channels don't do that. They just listen to a song and go, yeah, it's okay, or no, I didn't like it. You know, they don't talk about the song. They just say whether they like it or not. You know, so, you know, I like to think I bring a different depth to this sort of thing. You know, so putting in all that effort, and nobody's liking and subscribing, nobody's commenting, you know, it's kind of disheartening, and, you know, it does make me consider actually stopping doing it, because, you know, I'm putting in all this effort for nothing, essentially. So if you could like and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. It would make a hell of a lot of difference. It doesn't cost you anything, takes a fraction of a second. But that's all I've got for you for this video. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.
I swear I left her